Alright, trickers and trickers, it's time to take a look at the second episode of the day, which is The Muse. Jake Sisko is standing on the upper level of the promenade watching passengers disembark at transport and trying to come up with character ideas based on what he sees on the space station. An alien female emerges from the airlock and catches the eye of Jake before walking away. Oda walks to his office to find Luoxan and Troy crying because she's pregnant. Luoxan is pregnant with a male, and her husband, Jael, is a Tavnian. The problem, Oda finds out, is that Tavnian children are raised by the parent that is the same sex as the child, never to be seen by the other parent until reaching the age of 16. Luoxan wants to be a part of a child's life, and Jael said that would be possible, but apparently changed his mind when he found out she was pregnant with a boy. Luoxan has come to Oda for help, but Oda is reluctant to assist. Later, in the Replomat, Jake is working on a story when the alien woman he saw coming out of the airlock sits down next to him and starts talking. Her name is Onaya, and it turns out she has a thing for artists. Onaya talks about how she knew Tavor Kell, a famous Cardassian architect, and how she helped him stop censoring himself. Jake becomes interested, and she joins him at his table. She reveals to Jake that she can teach him exercises to help bring out his creativity and help him be remembered as an artist. Jake's intrigued as he seems to have a case of writer's block and hesitantly admits that he does want to be remembered. They agree to meet later at her quarters on the station. Back in his quarters, Jake is working on a story when his father, Benjamin Sisko, shows up and asks if he is packed for the trip he has planned with his father and Cassidy to the Bajoran Outback for 3 days. Jake says he doesn't want to go because he really needs to focus on the story, and his father understands, although his father doesn't know about Onaya. In Quarks, Oksana is depressed and is telling Worf, Dax, and Kira how she feels like a prisoner in her own home. Being a telepath, Oksana's mood seems to be affecting the emotional states of all those around her. Quark asks Odo to get rid of her, and Odo abides, taking her on a walk around the station. When the two arrive at Odo's quarters, Oksana tells Odo her food replicator is broken and asks if she can come in and use his. Odo agrees, but finds out it was just exercise for her to spend more time with him. Exhausted, Oksana sits down on Odo's floor, since he doesn't have any furniture, and falls asleep in Odo's arms. Odo graciously transforms one of his arms into a blanket and the other into a pillow. He doesn't seem to mind the situation at all. Jake arrives at Onaya's quarters, where he feels a little uncomfortable. Onaya assures him there is nothing to worry about. He's there to work. Onaya gives Jake the pen of the famous writer Revelis and tells Jake to start writing on paper. Jake says he's never used paper before, but Onaya tells him to write the first line, then urges him to keep writing. Onaya starts to bring on Jake's creativity while simultaneously draining his life little by little. The next morning, Loaxan and Odo are playing a game of hide and seek. Odo takes on the shape of an object in the room, and Loaxana tries to guess what or where he is. Their fun is cut short when Odo is informed by one of his deputies that Jael, Loaxana's husband, has arrived on the station. Odo has Jael brought to a security office where he informs him that Loaxana has no intention of giving up her child to him. Odo then reveals a loophole in Tavnian law which states that the male child is the property of the mother's husband and not the child's father. When Loaxana has her baby, Jael will no longer be her husband because Odo plans to marry Loaxana in a legal Tavnian ceremony. This will end her marriage to Jael and allow her to keep the baby. Odo and Loaxana will remain married for a few months to satisfy Tavnian law and then get annulment. The only problem is that Odo will have to convince Jael that he really wants to marry Loaxana for the marriage to be valid. Jake is still busy writing his latest story, and Onaya is still slowly draining out his creativity and draining his life. Jake comments he can hardly keep up with the flood of ideas he's having. Suddenly, Jake has a minor nosebleed. Onaya tells Jake he should rest, but Jake is too determined to stop now and keeps on writing. Odo arranges a surprise wedding with Loaxana where he must convince Jael and all that's present that his love for Loaxana is true. Otherwise, someone can challenge the validity of the marriage if they doubt the groom's sincerity, and Jael will be one tough critic. The ceremony proceeds, and Odo delivers his speech, which sounds superficial. Jael calls it a pale declaration of love, but Odo becomes more genuine and talks about when he first met Loaxana. She accepted him for who he was and how much that changed him. Jael accepts the ceremony, and Odo and Loaxana are married according to Tavnian law. The child is safe. Quark invites the newly married couple to his bar for a wedding party. After everyone leaves, Alexander tells Odo they should probably tell them the truth about their phony marriage, but they decide to tell them after the party. Jake is still writing and appears very tired. Onaya again tells Jake he needs to stop, but he refuses, feeling that he is on a roll. Onaya forces Jake to stop by taking his pen and tells Jake his writing will be even better if he is well rested. Jake agrees and starts to head home, but decides to stop at the Riblomat for a drink. He orders an orange juice, but collapses before he can sit down. In the infirmary, Dr. Bashir informs Cisco, who is back from his trip, that Jake's brain has been overstimulated and his cerebral cortex was on the verge of synaptic collapse. Dr. Bashir assures Cisco that Jake will eventually be alright, but needs to remain in a neural stabilization field for a while. Jake regains consciousness just long to say, "Onaya, where is she?" And Cisco begins looking for Onaya. During the night, Onaya materializes from an energy cloud in the infirmary and knocks out the nurse on duty. She wakes Jake up and tells him it's time to finish what he started, and takes him to an access conduit junction near the reactor core. Jake is again determined to keep writing and gets another nosebleed while Onaya drains his life more quickly. Brighton scans the infirmary and finds traces of psionic energy, and informs Odo tells search teams to modify their tricorders to search for psionic energy. Dr. Bashir tells them they need to hurry because psionic residue decays within minutes. Cisco picks up a psionic energy trace and finds Onaya and Jake. Cisco, armed with a phaser, tells Onaya to get away from Jake and asks what she is. Onaya reveals that she unlocks the potential of artists and, in the process, kills them but gives them immortality through their art. The energy and life she drains from her victims helps her survive. Onaya turns to an energy cloud and flies off into space. Back at the security office, Roxanne informs Odo that she's going back to Beta Z and that she's imposed on Odo long enough. Odo tries to convince her to stay, but she's afraid the marriage would fail if she stayed because of their differing feelings for each other. She truly loves him, and she wants him to feel the same passion. But she knows that while he enjoys her company, he just wants someone to take care of. He doesn't really love her. He asks if that isn't enough, but she says in time she would come to resent the unevenness of their relationship. She decided to return to her homeworld and eventually end the marriage so the two can remain friends. She tells him, "Goodbye, husband." Understanding, he replies, "Goodbye, wife." Later, after Jake has recovered, Cisco reads the story and tells him he has a good start in a novel, which he has titled Anselm, but the spelling is terrible. Jake agrees, but doesn't feel it's really his work. Cisco reminds him that they were his words. Onaya just helped bring them out. And that's very true. So anyway, let's take a look at some trivia surrounding this episode. Anselm, Jake Sisko's first novel, appeared for the second time in this season. The first appearance was in The Visitor. Loxana Troy recalls the death of her daughter Kestra as described in the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Dark Page. This episode is Majel Baird's last appearance as Loxana Troy and her final on-screen Star Trek appearance. Aww. The first time JL meets Odo, he pronounces Loxana's name as Laxwana. Jake is reading a Horatio Hornblower novel by C.S. Forrester when his father enters the room, the same novel he was reading in 2372. Michael and Zara previously played Kang in the original series episode Day of the Dove and DS9's Blood Oath, and later reprised his role in Voyager's Flashback. So overall, I think this episode is kind of interesting, and yeah, it is kind of a shame that this is the last time we get to see Loxana Troy ever, but at least Majel Baird's voice will still be part of Star Trek history forever, so there's that. So overall, I give the Muse 4 warp cores out of 5. Anyway, tune in bed as we take a look at the last episode of the day, For the Cause. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.